Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our DMACC Ask a Professional event. Thank you all for being here this afternoon. We are very excited to have Tanner Cockler here with us today. And our hope really with these events are that they're linking your education and maybe your career interest with professionals right here in Iowa. So again, thank you all for being here today. Before I start, I just want to say a quick hello as your host. My name is Jill Hoyk. I work a part of the work-based learning team here at DMACC. I'm also accompanied by my colleague, Amy Stainhook. She will be engaging a little bit more in the chat. And then we also have Patty Ziegler on the call too as well, and she is the program director for our real-time court reporting program too as well. So thank you again for all being here. I do like to quickly mention that DMACC does have a real-time court reporting program. We are the only one in the state of Iowa that does have that. And so we are going to leave some information in the chat for you to be able to check out the website in regards to that too. And I was doing a little research as far as the national annual median salary is around $62,000, which is awesome. And so we will kind of get into a little bit more of that a little bit later on, but awesome. Anyway, I want to introduce our professional for today. Like I mentioned, we have Tanner Cockler with us. Tanner is the court reporter for Judge James M. Drew at the Franklin County Courthouse in Hampton, Iowa. He is also a DMACC court reporting graduate. I believe it was in 2019. So I'm excited to kind of hear about his journey, a part of the program too as well. But Tanner, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your story of how you got to where you are today. So thank you. I am going to open up the question, but again, if anybody on the call has any questions for Tanner or Patty, please leave them in the chat or kindly unmute yourself and we will get those asked. So Tanner, I know I kind of introduced you a little bit, but I would love for you to kind of give us a background of how you got to where you are today. Is court reporting something that you knew you wanted to do at a young age, or is it something you kind of fell into? Take us on that journey.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. I ended up, after I graduated from high school, I went and played baseball a year at Iowa Western. And that lasted a year. And then I went to the University of Northern Iowa and I got my bachelor's degree there in history. And because I didn't want to become a librarian, I decided to, go to court reporting school. And my mom works at the clerk's office in Plymouth County. And she kind of mentioned something one time to me and out of the blue, she mentioned something and I kind of looked it up and wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with my history degree from UNI. So I looked it up and I just kind of signed up on a whim and I just kind of went into it pretty blindly. And, I went through everything that I needed to do and here I am. I ended up loving it. So it's just kind of something I fell into and didn't really have a plan for it.
That's great. So when you talk about kind of like the training needed for a career in this, do you have to have a degree in court reporting in order to do the career that you have working with a judge?
Yeah, you have to go to school and train to become a court reporter. It is impossible not to. Yeah, you have to learn your theory and all of your speed classes just to be able to write on the machine. I mean, a normal person looks at the machine and they can't even wrap their head around it. So yeah, you have to go through the 2-year program at DMACC or wherever you go. Sometimes it's more than 2 years if how the program's designed. But yeah, you have to go through all the requirements in order to become a court reporter.
Awesome. And can you kind of explain what a typical day looks like for you as a court reporter? I know we had a conversation prior to this event starting and every day does kind of look a little different, but can you just explain, kind of walk us through a day to day?
Okay, there's different types of days, kind of depending on what kind of judge you work for. And so, for example, my judge is a district court judge, and we handle a lot of like felonies and dissolutions, child custody, and stuff like that. So, like, we cover counties, certain counties, depending on what month of the year it is. And so, say on a Monday, we'll have a court service day, and we'll cover, bond reviews, temporary custody hearings, just all sorts of short type hearings that we can get in a day, which could be up to 12 or so hearings. And then obviously there's jury trials that come along once in a while, and um, I don't know, they're not as common. I actually luckily had about 4 in a month, like 2 months ago, which is very, very uncommon and very kind of stressful, but that doesn't happen very often. And then you have your divorce cases and child custody cases, which I'm not a huge fan of, but you got to do them. And then, and then obviously a day like today, my judge is on vacation and I am working on some transcripts and stuff like that. So that's kind of a summary of what I could be doing in a given week.
And how did you know that you wanted to go down more of this route? Because there is a lot of opportunity within this. And so how did you know that being in the court is like where you wanted to land versus maybe being somebody who's doing more like closed captioning and that type of thing?
Right. So like, yeah, obviously I could have gone into freelance and done depositions and stuff. I really like the structure of the courthouse, and I know what I'm going to do every day basically. And every hearing or every trial that I do is not going to result in this transcript. But if I did a deposition, if they hire me for a deposition, I'm going to do the transcript. And I'm not really a big fan of doing transcripts. I like getting paid for them, but like they kind of just consume my mind as they're going to become due, and I try to avoid them. And then I have to work very hard to get them done on time. So I'm just not a big fan of the transcripts, but I do like the structure that the courthouse brings, and just being able to have my programs to look up schedules and up all the information that I need for certain hearings or trials and stuff like that.
So how many hours a day do you work, or does that depend?
Well, we work 8 to 4:30 every day, and when it's 4:30, I'm done working. I mean, if I have a transcript, if I really need to get it done, I work when I need to get it done. I'll work after work and stuff like that. But if I can fit it in when I don't have anything assigned from my judge, I try to fit it in, because we're allowed to do that then.
Awesome. So what would you say that you find most enjoyable about your career?
I like as I just started a new job. Well, it's been a year now. So it's not really new anymore, but at last August, I started with this judge, and so it's all new attorneys, all new judges, all new court staff. And as you get to know them and stuff, it's a lot more, I don't know, it's fun to have the relationships with all the people that are involved in the court, and as the court staff and everything like that. And that's one thing for sure. And then my other favorite thing is when you have a very specialized trial. I like to be in trial, and I like to be on my machine, because that's what I like to do. I don't usually talk when I'm on Zoom because I'm on my machine. But when you have a specialized trial, like we just had a nursing home case, and the attorneys are very specialized in what they do, and they know everything about nursing home law, and they can give you an answer for anything. And they're very sharp, and they are just on top of everything, and it's very cool, and that's very enjoyable to me, to have like attorneys that are really good, and they really appreciate you, and they understand what job you're doing for them.
So this may be kind of an ignorant question, but is there a specific name for the machine that you use for court reporting? Is there like a fancy name attached
Yeah,
to?
it's a stenograph machine.
Yeah, I knew there would be something. Yes.
And there's a bunch of different models of them. I have a Luminex, and yeah, they're all called stenograph machines, but there's a bunch of different models, and Patty has one there.
Is that a part, like when you go work for somebody, do you have to bring your own machine, or is that a part of like the company that you would work for?
That's working for the state. Everyone has their own, and you bring it every day to work, like your laptop or whatever. And I don't know, as far as freelancing goes, I don't know if some people are lucky when their company buys one for them, but for the state, you have to have your own.
Gotcha.
Tanner, this is Amy. Could you talk a little bit more about the stenograph and learning? I mean, that's a whole different language. It's a whole different typing and way of typing. Like, to me, it is intimidating. Could you talk about, I mean, obviously you can do it, but talk about how that process or the length of that training, and how you got through some of the schooling to learn that skill.
Yeah, so you on the machine, you write words phonetically, and it's just showing some of my bias here. I'm a Hawkeye fan, but that's my only bias in the courtroom. So everything is spelled phonetically on this machine for the most part, and like you use both hands to like press down the keys at once. So it's not like a keyboard where you're spelling out each letter to make words. You're basically writing words all at once, and sometimes more than one, two, three, four. So yeah, so that's why the training, it's pretty intense training, and because it has to be like, you can't have any hesitation when you write in the courtroom, because it goes fast. And some days it's really fast, some days you're writing well and it doesn't matter, but other days you're not writing well and feel like you're behind like the whole time. And so it just, the training is it's intense in school, and it did take me a little longer than 2 years. And when it comes down to it, you get out of it what you put into it. And it took me a little while to figure that out, but I'm a court reporter now.
So how long every night would you say that you practiced your typing?
Oh man, you don't want to ask that question to me.
Or what should you? What should you do every night? I mean, I'm a piano player, so I don't know. I equate it to that. Like, if you really want to excel in that, you need to every day put in some practice. So what would you say would be ideal?
So if I remember correctly, we probably had like when I was getting towards the end of school, we had class for probably 4 hours a day. It was close to 4 hours a day. And then in order to keep up with your practice, we had practice logs of a certain amount of hours a week, and pretty much according to like, to keep up with your log, I was there practicing for probably 3 to 4 hours afterwards every day. So you're probably on your machine 6, 7, 8 hours a day if you really want to get something accomplished.
Wow.
Which is, it takes, you have to be pretty devoted to it. And there's always going to be some people that it comes more naturally than others. But I mean, if you see someone that seems to be, doing it more easily than others, it doesn't always mean that they're not working at it. And you can't really compare yourself to others in that aspect.
Well, just along those lines, I mean, the ability to kind of focus for long periods of time, I'm sure. How long, I mean, do you typically go for like a couple hours and then have a break, or how does the court system work in regards to that?
They usually give us, we usually have a morning break and an afternoon break plus lunch. So we usually never go longer than an hour and a half at a time. Is that how that's broken up? And it's not, there's some days where it's pretty intense in the courtroom where it's like constant, but normal everyday conversation isn't always constant. There's breaks and there's pauses and stuff like that. So it's not always like you're writing constantly the whole time, but I mean, it's once you get used to it, it's not so bad.
Yeah. So along with that, what sort of skill set for students that are looking, potentially to go into this field, what are some skill sets or personality traits that you feel people would need in order to go into court reporting?
I don't know that it takes a certain personality. You see a lot of court reporters that are all different, and but I think I would say a common personality trait, I guess, is most court reporters just like to get their stuff done and like, I don't know, work hard without like being noticed, I suppose. I don't know. You don't talk in court really unless you have to interrupt someone. And so you're just doing your work without without being the center of attention, I suppose, I would say, I guess. Whereas obviously attorneys are the center of attention usually, but I don't know. That's a hard question to answer because I think just thinking about all the court reporters that I work around, they're all different. And so I don't think it really takes a certain personality trait.
Yeah.
How about skills? Sorry, Jill, I interrupted. How about skills, Tanner or Patty? Maybe you can chime in here. What skills do you see as necessary for someone to be successful in the field?
I think it takes an understanding of vocabulary and punctuation a lot, because there's a lot of words that people say that, I mean, it still happens to me all the time where they say a word and like, what is that word? And then you look it up and it's just like, oh, duh. And, and there's a lot of words out there that, what I'm trying to say, they mean the same thing or they sound the same. And you have to really tell the difference between them. Otherwise, it can really make your transcript different. And you don't want to, put words in people's mouths if it's not the right word, stuff like that. And punctuation, as far as that goes, like that can totally change the meaning of what someone said too.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like the precision and speed that you have to work at, it's not like something you can ponder on, So
No.
yes. Yeah, thank you for that. So what do you find is one of the most challenging things about your career? I know you've mentioned a few, but day in and day out, what do you find most challenging?
There are like I said, there are days where you're not as sharp as you can be, and it's just one of those things where you just can feel that you're not writing on your machine as well as you have in the past, just when you have one of those days. But also with that, usually that timing comes when there's a witness or there's an attorney, or it doesn't matter what you say to them, they're not going to stop talking fast. And that's the biggest, I would say, one of the biggest challenges that comes with something in a courtroom day to day, because some people just cannot talk slower, and they naturally interrupt people, and there's just nothing you can do to really slow them down or stop them. And I'm lucky because my judge is very good at interrupting and kind of going to bat for me as far as that goes. Whereas I've worked with other judges and it's not always the case, where they kind of let it go and you have to stop it yourself. So just kind of some challenges that I have to deal with.
Yeah, and when you were mentioning transcripts earlier, can you kind of explain what that is, and then kind of your process in doing so? Like when you say transcript, what could that be of, I guess?
Okay, so actually right now I'm working on a transcript of a child custody case. Someone petitioned the court for a modification of child custody, and they won. So the other party is now appealing, and they want a transcript of what happened that day. So this transcript I'm doing is about 125 pages, and that's not really too many. I did one a couple months ago that was like 1,500 pages. So basically just, editing and getting everything ready to send out of what everyone said that day so that they can reread it and make motions or, try to appeal and win their case back, I guess.
Wow. So interesting. Do you see any, developments along with like technology that could potentially affect what you're doing as far as like technology goes, or any even with your machines or anything like that? Anything new on the horizon in your career that you can foresee?
They always come out with new machines with better technology all the time and stuff like that. But as far as like people always saying that, oh, they're just going to be able to record it and everything. They've been saying that for about 40 years now, and we're still here. And like we were talking before we logged on, they were mowing outside, and the recorder's not going to tone out the mower just so that court's going on. And there's a lot of I have a recording with my machine as it goes, and once in a while I go back and listen if I need to for like certain parts. And sometimes it's really hard to hear. Like my recording is good and it's hard to hear it. So I don't know that we could ever be replaced if they tried to do that.
So is that a part of your processes, is after you're in court, and then do you revert back to your recording to kind of make your edits and that type of thing?
Not often. I have all my basically notes that no one else can really read, and I have a program that translates them into English, and then I can make edits from there. Based on my notes, I kind of know if I messed up a little bit, I know what I was trying to write or what I misstroked or whatever. So I usually go that route. If I really, really need something, I will go back and listen to it. And a lot of times I go listen just to see like if forgot to put the exhibits in an order, I'll go see what exhibits got admitted, because I don't want to go through the whole thing and whatever. But I don't always use the recording.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to people who are looking maybe at this career field, whether it's right out of high school or if it's later in life? What advice would you give them to kind of prepare?
It's a lot of work to be in school for court reporting, and Patty actually put down the personality traits, and I agree with her. The attention to detail, willingness to learn, competitive spirit, stuff like that, work hard. It does take all those things, and it is difficult sometimes, but at the end of the day, it's very rewarding. And any court reporter has a job that virtually almost no one else can do, and it's a very important job.
Absolutely. Does anyone else have any questions for Tanner? I just want to make sure that I'm not missing any of them. I know I have seen, I think maybe Patty's crew out and about and just watching that machine, and it's just so interesting to me. So I would love to kind of see a live demo of that sometime. What is your favorite case you've reported?
Oh man. I would say that my favorite cases, it kind of comes down to like favorite moments, because I have a kind of a dry sense of humor, and so it turns into like questions or answers that during court that just make me almost bust out laughing. And it actually happened a few weeks ago. We were on Zoom, and so this guy got asked this. Okay, background of the answer to the question was, this guy is letting this other guy rent his house with no interest, and he's gonna purchase it after they're done renting it with no interest. And he's getting a divorce with his wife, and the attorney asks him, so do you think you could take payments for this, for the settlement? And he goes, yeah, with interest. And the attorney goes, well, you're not asking for interest on the guy buying your house, but you want interest from your wife. And he looks straight and dead in the camera and he goes, well, I like that guy because he doesn't like his wife that he's divorcing. You know, there're just certain things that, you know, they make you laugh. And sometimes you can't always laugh, but if the whole courtroom's laughing, then you can. But I just find a lot of humor in certain questions and answers. And that's something that I really enjoy about being in court, because there's all walks of life, and you get a lot of answers that are sometimes not the greatest, I would say.
Yes, that's funny. Amy, thank you for asking this, because I was thinking that as he was saying it, because I know some days, even just typing emails, I'm like, oh my goodness, I am off my game today. So what happens if you get behind when you're typing? Like, can you stop, or do you just keep going? Like, what do you do in that scenario?
You just ask them to slow down, or to repeat themselves if they clearly were talking too fast, and it's a pretty common thing. So like how I said that before, that some people you just can't slow down. There's other people that are very conscious of it, and they will definitely slow down for you the rest of the day. And as far as that goes, and that's very much more common than the people that there's nothing stopping them, basically. So.
And then are you back in the courthouse, or are you still on Zoom?
We do a little bit of both. Well, mostly in the courthouse, and then if we have some hearings that can be short, or they're agreed to be on Zoom just for the convenience of it, then we'll do them on Zoom. And those we do them on Zoom, and then we have to eliminate some travels for some people just to, you know, for convenience.
Great. You mentioned that recently you changed jobs. If you change jobs from one judge to another in the same courthouse, is that difficult to negotiate? What would cause a reporter to want to change judges?
My change was not in the same courthouse, so that was easy. But my old judge was retiring, and there was a job open in Mason City, Clear Lake area, and me and my wife were always wanting to live over here, so it was kind of an easy decision. And but I've heard of some people before that, you know, they want to change within the same courthouse, and I don't really know how that went, if they did or not, but yeah, I'm not really sure about that.
And then we'll kind of wrap up here, because I want to be respectful of your time, Tanner. But is it hard to not get caught up in the case or the emotions that you might have when hearing certain cases? I know you mentioned the child custody and all of those. Is it hard to kind of not get wrapped up in that?
Yeah, there's some days where you hear and you see things that are not good. Um, and so you get I like to have those days to be days that I'm driving somewhere, because it kind of takes a little time to unwind. And without it's hard not to go into any detail on what types of things you see, but you know, if someone dies and there's a case about them, or a murder, you see all of it and you hear about all of it. And or say there's a sexual abuse case and they're sentencing, and the victim is reading their victim impact statement, and it's sometimes not easy.
Absolutely. So my last question for you is, if you could start all over again, would you change your career journey in any way at all? Or are you happy with how everything has played out?
I actually thought about this a lot when I saw this question on the sheet, and you know, I'm really happy with where I am now. And you know, I really personally for me, when I went to UNI, I had my fun there, and I don't know at the time if I was ready to go through court reporting school. And some people are right out of high school, and that's perfectly good for them. And I just wasn't at the time. And I think that I'm just in the perfect spot right now. And if I would have gone to like a trade school, like court reporting school right out of high school, I probably wouldn't be a court reporter. I'd be like an electrician or something. I don't know. But yeah, outside of wishing that I didn't have student loan debt from UNI, I didn't gain anything from it, that'd be about it.
Yes, yes. That's great. Well, Tanner, thank you so much for your time today and just enlightening us on your profession. And it sounds like you have a crew that's pretty proud of you for all your tenacity to get through the program and such too. So thank you again for sharing your time with us today. For those of you who are logging in, I do have an evaluation. If you just kind of want to tell us if you enjoyed the day or not, I'm going to share my screen, and there's a QR code for you to be able to fill that out if you would be so kind in doing so. But again, Tanner, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your career with us.